Welcome, audiophile and cinephiles alike, to the Beneflicks podcast, the show where we are reaping the beneflicks one movie at a time. I'm Liz.
And I'm Tyson.
How you doing today, man?
Good. I think last time we recorded, it was a sunny, beautiful day,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's quite the inverse of it being
Mm,
rainy and gloomy.
yeah,
And although I don't know if that fits the vibe for today's episode, I will say it's very atmospheric for us in this room.
I agree. I do think that there is a power and something more palpable when it does rain. However, I'm not like one of those freaks that really do believe that rain always equates to a good vibe because I do think like if I'm having a mental health day that isn't very good, the rain and the grayness can make it a lot worse.
I agree.
So I don't agree with the freaks like that. But welcome on in everybody. This is officially our second episode of the Beneflix podcast. First and foremost, if you are unfamiliar, we are here to talk about all things movies, pop culture, life, and everything in between. And although we are talking about a new movie, I guess like newish by the time this releases, it may not even be in theaters if the people nuke it. I don't know.
Which they are. Let's
Probably.
make that clear. The people thus far have been nuking it.
Yeah, but regardless of our thoughts, because I'm not going to reveal my tell just yet about what we think about Gore Verbinski's Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, we are here to talk about any and all movies on our mind. But more importantly, if you can, email us in at beneflixpod@gmail.com with your thoughts, not just about this movie, but anything. Obviously, don't make it crass or inappropriate, but we would love to make this an interactable thing. I would love to hear if there's any movies that you would recommend for us to watch. And although this is a new movie, we're going to be talking a lot about Gore Verbinski today. And I'm very,
Yeah,
very excited about that.
old, new, and a little bit in between. The guy hasn't made a movie in 10
Sure.
years, right? So
Hmm.
anything that's not good luck, have fun
Hmm.
is basically kind of out of the zeitgeist,
Yeah.
or is it rather?
But I guess before we kind of dive into that, we kind of explained our thoughts, the current climate literally that is permeating this episode as we record it. But I wanted to ask, how do you feel having one episode in the can, finished, not fully edited, but do you feel that there is a difference, a different headspace you have going into this video, this episode? How do you feel now that we have one officially done that we like? Question mark?
Yeah, no, I think it came out very, very well. I guess what kind of reaffirms why I want to do something like this is it does
Hmm.
get me thinking a bit more. It gets me brewing on the conversation a lot more. And I think one thing that you and I very much jived with
Hmm.
when it came to our love for the art form was the conversation afterwards. We've experienced a lot of film
Yeah.
with people who aren't huge talkers, especially about what they like just watched. Much rather like they consume it, they enjoy it, or rather didn't enjoy it. But that's kind of the end of the story for them.
Yeah.
And the conversation afterwards isn't as kind of, I guess, as the name of the podcast implies, like they're not really reaping the benefits from the experience, whether it's a good or bad movie.
Hmm.
And one thing that I really get down with our relationship is the fact that we enjoy that conversation and we relish in it. If anything, a lot of times I'm looking forward to during the experience of watching the movie talking about it. I love talking about film and most
Yeah.
art. So I guess this platform for us is just a lot of the same. Um,
Hmm.
but it kind of comes down to, do we want to hold our thoughts for the podcast? Do you
Mm,
just want to kind of talk about it beforehand and then
yeah.
expand upon it later? Obviously, we're very much still new to this process of watching and recording and whatnot.
Yeah.
However, even in the short amount of time, I feel like it's affected the way that I want to talk about something and the way I want to convey my thoughts on something. But I'm curious, as someone who's done content
Hmm.
for years and years now,
Hmm.
has, I guess, a long form version of that with a podcast affected the way you go about the whole
Hmm.
viewing experience?
One thing that I'm going to say that like I maybe if I thought about it long enough, I would have kind of come to this discovery, and it's kind of obvious, but and as we will elaborate on, especially in this video, one thing that I do appreciate, and this is more as an overview, is it gives us so much more of an incentive to not just have a conversation about when a new filmmaker is making a movie. Hey, we should watch some of their work, or even when they're not making a new movie, a lot of times we just talk about it and we don't really do much about it. And I will admit, like, our schedules make it a bit more difficult for that to be the case. But I do really love the fact that we have been able to actually dive And what we will talk about, because we watched a couple of Gore Verbinski's movies going into this, even ones that I am not with like lock, stock, and two smoking barrels saying that like, oh, you're gonna love this for like a surefire guarantee.
Yeah.
I seriously appreciate the fact that we can go in, really commit to watching a filmmaker's body of work, and then have it be a prime ability for us for whatever new movie or new joint that they're coming out with. As in terms of like long form, one thing that like we have kind of agreed on is like having a little itinerary before giving you guys a little behind the scenes scoop. Like we kind of jot down communally like a couple notes that we want to have, not even really about the movie, but about the episode and how we want to approach it. And that really brings me back, funny enough, to when I had first started doing YouTube, like ASMR reviews. I did this really unhealthy thing where I felt like I had to rigorously jot down every note as if like I was having to submit it as a homework assignment,
Mm,
and I would wind up like fearing that I wouldn't hit like the 10-minute runtime, and it was more about hitting these check marks, and there was so much that was inorganic about it, and I would just get it would get me so upset because it was then I became like this computer where then I would miss something or not say it, and I was like, oh, the video is inferior because of that.
mm,
And so over time I have found, like, if anyone doesn't know, or if anyone is coming from like my page that I have recommended this podcast to, all the videos I have of like movies, I don't think I go under like 20 minutes. And again, it's not about the runtime, but I haven't taken notes about any of the movies I've talked about in years. And I have felt like, oh, sweet, that's going to be the mantra going forward. But this has really allowed me, and even when we're watching the movies, I'm not having like letterbox brain, right? Where like I'm thinking, oh, how am I going to score this movie? Or how am I going to rate it? Or what am I going to talk about? But it allows me to analyze things in a way where it's like I know you and me have a very specific language that we talk in like goon speak,
yeah.
and it is how do I translate it in a way where it makes someone understand what it is that I'm saying. And I think that's kind of the whole point of this podcast. So to answer your question, sorry, long-winded, but it has helped me appreciate the art of note taking and analyzation in a way that we can compile for an episode, and it's allowed me just to appreciate a filmmaker's body of work more, I think.
100%. And I think what's really interesting about, what you're doing on a social media platform level is a big focus of your content, at least to some degree, is ASMR.
Yeah,
And although I'm positively sure that there's a good, um, chunk of your audience that is able to envelop in not only the content of what you're saying,
yeah,
but also how you're saying it, I do have to imagine there is some degree of people that are kind of there just because, like the way your voice sounds and the way that you articulate things and whatnot,
hmm,
and whether the content doesn't really matter to them, or rather they're so enveloped in your silky, dreamy, beautiful voice that they just kind of lose on the
well,
content.
thank you.
I imagine that you're no longer getting into the video review section of like your YouTube channel, but you're
Yeah,
also stepping away from the more ASMR oriented areas of your
yeah,
content. So now you're completely focusing on what that content of what you're saying is. You can't
hmm,
use, not to say that you do, but rather you
yeah.
can't use visuals to mask what you're attempting to say. It's just completely how
That's
you
a
articulate it.
that's a very good point, and I think like it just gives me an excuse to like talk to you more. Like what I think, and maybe this is unfair to say, given that we're like in the midst of recording a second episode, so maybe these words will only be able to take better shape later
Our
down the
last
line.
episode, like this age is like milk, and this is our last episode ever.
Either like I die or we have like the worst falling out. But like one of the fears that I've had like getting older is, and as we have talked, especially like off the pod, about like life and how like for me especially like maintaining friendships have been difficult, whether it's because through a myriad of reasons, like there's a lot of things that I no longer am as a person of who I was, but like a fear that I've had is like, and I don't think it's ever really taken shape with you and me per se, but like it is so fucking easy to just stop keeping up with these maintaining friendships.
Mhm.
And right, like I don't think we've talked about like partnerships in who we pursue as like lovers, for example, and obviously I'm not trying to like veer too off the course here, but like I couldn't pursue someone who doesn't have a love for the arts,
Yeah.
or a love for the medium or any medium for that
Yes.
matter, or just passion filled. So for us, for me and you, it's come very easily, but this is so much more of like a not just like a friend, but like on a somewhat professional level. Like we get to have fun, but like
It's intimate.
it is,
You can say it. Like it is
it
an
is,
intimate thing. I think any person who does any sort of content with someone they truly care about, it is an intimate experience because
yeah,
I mean, whether you're creating a film, creating a song, or creating,
hmm
content,
hmm
or for our instance, creating a podcast,
hmm
you are taking a risk with someone in the sense where like this is how you're going to be perceived,
yeah,
and this person that you're going on this partnership with is going to be
hmm
a part of that perception.
yeah,
So you're taking kind of a gamble, taking a risk, but also it's very vulnerable.
hmm
Like
yeah,
when people start watching and listening to these episodes, and they're like, "Wow, that one guy's voice is really annoying."
hmm
That by proxy is going to some degree affect you because that's who you're hanging out with, that's who you're partnering with. But then also like when I'm getting comments like, "Wait, is are you guys like are you guys like dating in real life?" Then like
mm,
that's a perception
mm.
of us, right?
And maybe
Like,
that's like we're doing a good job, right?
yeah, we should feel like we're boyfriend and girlfriend.
Right? But I think it's also like, that's actually so funny because like I don't know. I listen to only like a few. Like I will admit like there's like certain creators that I have found on YouTube or just audio spaces that like have inspired and stoked the flame of being like, let's do this. But I really do unfortunately think that when it comes to verbally translating your feelings about a movie, people look at it in, I'm not trying to say like a linear, but like on a text level of like how does the art of film translate in ways of technical achievement, but like you and me, we've talked about so many times, like at the end of the day it comes down to like the emotional impact that it has for us and like the way that that has kind of connected and gelled in us individually and emotionally. So yeah, I'm excited, and if they get the whiff that we are lovers because of how much we love art, shit, I think that's a win.
No, it's actually the biggest compliment we can probably get.
I hope so. So yeah, guys, let's stoke that theory. We are Josh O'Connor or Connor O'Malley, and but like his Connor. Sorry, we'll get you Connor on the pod. Don't you worry. But with that being said, do you want to maybe? Because okay, how about why don't we talk real quick about the plot, if you don't mind, of Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, and then maybe we can work our way around the journey that it took to get there. Or do you want to talk about the journey and then the plot?
I think we'll to I guess kind of bridge what we were just talking about in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like our second episode and how we feel conveying art and whatnot. I
Yeah.
think this was going to be a natural progression, not only to approach a new film that's currently in theaters for us at the time of this recording,
Yeah.
but also to look at a um, a director's filmography who has kind of branched over the years in so many different facets and ways. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it was appropriate for this to be kind of an early episode for us because I think it's going to be a lot of what we're doing in the future.
Okay.
And that in terms of approaching a director's filmography, talking about their past works. And I don't think for us necessarily, because I feel like with even normal conversations outside of a pod
Mm-hmm.
sphere, we tend to poke the flame of directors' past works or their future works instead
Yeah.
of just focusing on the one thing at hand.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's what's always fascinating is what's the through line or how is this being conveyed on a new level or a director like Gore Verbinski who has been out of the game for 10 years.
Yeah.
What does he have to say now that he's back?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that in terms of like a bridge into what we were just talking about, like I think what really gets us going as two people that like to communicate with one another is a director's filmography,
Mm-hmm.
is what makes them tick, is what recurring themes they're poking at. So with Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, you have this new release
Mm-hmm.
from a guy who um, is very angry at AI.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of ways. I guess maybe angry is a word to put it, but essentially the plot of this is you have a time traveling from the future Sam Rockwell who one day goes into a Norm's diner
Mm-hmm.
and basically tells everyone in there, "Hey, I've been here before, and through hundreds and different ways, I've tried to figure out combinations of people in this diner to come with me on this journey to essentially limit, stop, to withhold AI,
Mm-hmm.
because it's going to grow, and in my future, it ruins everything."
Mm-hmm.
and then we kind of follow like these different ragtag group of characters who come along with Sam Rockwell and kind of what their motivations are and what's getting them to be persistent on this journey or what use they have to provide.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
and that's the best way I can explain it without getting into spoilers.
I think you hit it.
I hit it, but we both know that's like this movie.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not at all like we both went into this kind of blind in the sense like we waited for to watch it with one another.
Yeah.
We're a couple weeks out from its release originally, or at
Hmm.
least when we could have seen it at the very least.
Sure.
And the thing with the movie is that I heard a lot about it beforehand, like through reviews.
Hmm.
I watched the trailer. You didn't, but I watched the
No.
trailer. And to some degree, everyone was kind of describing this movie as the AI bad.
Yeah.
And I'm here to say, for those who have not seen the movie, which we'll give a spoiler alert when we need to
I
if we're
agree.
going to.
I think we need to.
Um, but it's nowhere at all just the AI is bad movie. Now, in a lot of facets, you can boil it down to it, and I, to some
Hmm.
extent, know that's where his anger and where his passion for
Yeah.
this topic in this film is fueling from.
Hmm.
But there are just weird angles to this movie that make it even more of like a jigsaw trap. So yeah, no, this movie was.
I see. I'm viewing it far more as like a Chinese finger trap, right? Like the moment you're in, because it's like, hey, Gore Verbinski, okay, AI bad. You and me obviously agree. This is why we're doing this on YouTube and not Spotify, which is a whole different level of like scumminess. But like we're there for it, and then we get in.
And we're fucking trapped.
No, we're trapped. And not to say that we want to leave, but before I ask you the unsung question of what your thoughts were on this movie, I think it is clear to note that I know to an extent like you have had a prior relationship between before us meeting up with Gore Verbinski and his filmography just slightly. Um, but it was kind of like when we came together and the first and only movie we had watched at the time of Gore Verbinski's filmography was The Ring, correct?
Yeah, we watched that together 2 Halloweens ago.
We did. Technically the day after Halloween I had put in my mail-in ballot. And that was a weird day. I will admit. I think that was a day that I look back on not very favorably, not at all because of Gore, not at all because of you, Tyson, but that was just a weird day. If you remember, just having a conversation with someone that I no longer speak to, and I say that to say that it clouded my headspace because we did a double feature with Trick or Treat, classic, and then The Ring, and that really wasn't a fair time to assess it. And then after a few months later I don't even remember the why. You know what? No, it was because the theater in LA was showing the three Pirates of the Caribbean films, technically all five, but
Yeah, the what was it, the El Capitan?
yeah, the El Capitan in LA. And we had watched the first and the second together, and then we went to go see the third, which I do look back on and I do say, like, kind of regrettably, we should have done Dead Man's Chest in the theater. Um, just because I think that movie's dynamite. Like I think it is like maybe the crowning achievement of the mid 2000s blockbuster filmmaking. Maybe with the crown being split with like Paul W.S. Anderson and Michael Bay that then have put like Nickelodeon slime on theirs, but it's fucking rocks. And so we saw that shit, and then I that was last year. And then this Halloween, or that last Halloween last year, 2025, I got the 4K of The Ring, put it on, and it was like a paradigm shift. We talk about like movies where either after big events in our life we rewatch and don't like, and there's a lot less for me. I can only think of like Arrival, like we talked about. But again, like I love The Ring, and I know you do too. I gave it a 4, but when I rewatched it, I was like, oh, this is like maybe one of the greatest American horror stories, even outside of adaptation. Like it is just unbelievably firing on all cylinders.
100%.
And that kind of led us to this past like week or so where I at least was thinking, okay, what could we do? There's a lot of gore. There's a couple that I haven't seen, like the earlier stuff. I haven't seen The Mexican or The Weatherman, but I was like, where could I go and what could we watch? And that landed us to choosing The Lone Ranger and A Cure for Wellness now. But A Cure for Wellness, we literally are hot off the presses of having just watched, like minutes before pressing the record button here,
That's true.
and we watched Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die last night. So it is a very interesting posit that we are having this filmmaker at because I know, like, I'm not going to speak all too on your behalf, and we'll talk about because I don't even know what this motherfucker's thoughts are on A Cure for Wellness because that was like your first official watch, correct?
Yeah, like a big grandpa movie. Gore's a very big grandpa director for
Mm,
sure.
hmm.
So I remember seeing like snippets, and I like had like some ideas of what the twist ending was, but I couldn't completely supplant them or whatever it may be. But
Yeah.
regardless, yeah, like I hadn't been up as to and as
Hmm.
to in tune with the movie as I am now
Sure.
currently.
And I know you don't really love the Lone Ranger. I think you can really appreciate the swings, and I think when we get more into Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, and the lunacy of that movie, I think we can really tie it back to where this man has been like embedded into the zeitgeist of pop culture and where it's been ebbing and flowing and how his stories have kind of contorted with it. But I think you appreciated the Lone Ranger's swings at times. You know, if not, you weren't loving it.
Yeah, no, I mean what I will give the movie, and maybe this will be spoiling my thoughts for
Okay,
the two that we just watched. Beyond or not, sorry, excluding The Ring, I think it's probably my favorite looking Gore. I think it looks pretty terrific. I
okay,
think the desert setting is a good backing for his zaniness and his craziness.
okay,
Um,
okay.
and yes, you hit it on the head where I don't really love that movie. I think that it loses a lot of steam in that third act, and I just kind of think it's too long and I don't care by the end of it,
Hmm.
especially when it's trying to force in like this weird love dynamic between Armie Hammer and the love interest,
Mm-hmm.
which I cannot care two shits about.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I like the fact that Johnny Depp is playing a Native American. I'm a big fan of that.
He's part Native American, apparently.
Allegedly. I'm a big fan of the fact that the cannibal is doing his thing in it. I like the fact that
Oh
Armie Hammer
yeah,
is running amok,
he's eating it up.
he- some would say.
Hmm.
And I do think the beginning is baller, right? That's the hanging scene or like the execution scene. Am I mistaken in that?
See, what's so funny is like we're talking about a filmmaker who literally has a kid getting hung at like the third Pirates of the Caribbean.
Fire.
So at first I was like, wait, what are we talking about here? Yeah, like a planned execution. That
Yeah.
is so fucking crazy though, because I like you. I don't want to speak on behalf of everyone, but I'm gonna be the Lorax and speak for the trees here. Like everyone agrees that like that third act is bomb, like mint, and I'm one of them that like I think that lull, albeit with like some great highs in between. There's like a 45-minute stint where, I'm not saying it's coasting. I still think, again, to you, what you're saying, it all looks great, but I think it is bookended or it begins and bookends like with two incredible set pieces. And I will admit, I was wrong with the notion that that was like the last big Disney movie because then Brad Bird did Tomorrowland, and that really was like the last go. It was like John Carter, Lone Ranger, like the
Mm,
three
the three
disciples.
giants. Okay.
What do they say in the Bible? The three kings that give Jesus like little gifts and shit. Like,
And is Jesus Walt Disney?
you know what, like Futurama had Walt Disney,
Yeah.
or probably just I guess us at the end of the day. But like they gave us gifts that we turned away, and now we're getting
Ooh.
like A Wrinkle in Time and Artemis Fowl. Like,
And some would argue even better or better movies.
oh sure, what are they cooking up? Toy Story 5? Jesus, but. I guess, sorry, long overdue, but guys, you're along for the ride. Talk to me real quick about do you want to start with your thoughts of Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, since in order that's what you watched, and then A Cure for Wellness? Or do you want to talk about A Cure for
Yeah,
Wellness?
let's talk about good luck, have fun.
What do you think? Because I saw you squirming in that seat.
I was squirming in my seat. We do this thing where whenever we watch a movie together,
Mhm.
Liz tries to like see my tell,
Yeah.
and they're decent at it. A big tell of mine is when I start focusing on the score too much and I start like
Yeah.
finger miming the
Yeah.
score. That's kind of usually a tell that I'm either really into it or really out of
You're
it. It's
done.
never in between. Um, anyways, this movie is fucking insane. And truth be told, even though we're not hot off the iron of that one, we have a bit more time to digest it.
Yeah.
I still don't fully know my thoughts on it. It's like such a enigma of a movie. Someone described it to me before I ended up seeing it as like very kind of akin to Everything Everywhere All at Once,
Okay.
which I can kind of understand, but like it feels funny enough a little bit more like Weapons, at least in the sense where I didn't know
Mm.
that it was gonna have. Is that a spoiler? Can I? Can
No, no,
I?
no. Well, it depends on like what you're denoting. Well, I guess. save that a little bit because I think no matter where you go about it and describing it akin to weapons, I think it does spoil a
Sure, I
part of
guess I
it.
can't really say why it's like weapons. However,
Yeah.
yeah, no, this movie was fucking crazy, and it's not bad. I can't say it's great.
Uh huh.
I don't even want to say it's middling because it's not.
Uh huh.
It's really fucking funny. What I will give the movie, which I know for a fact, is I talked about it right after we got the movie without saying too much to them. But this movie is really fucking funny. There's a lot of very funny moments, very funny
Yeah.
line deliveries. The script is like has like outlandishly crazy things to say. Like it almost kind of feels like Seth MacFarlane got his hands in the mix and just started writing shit down on the script.
Yeah, but like a Seth MacFarlane that never made Family Guy and had a person in his circle that was killed at the hand of something in a situation that then they became so impassioned by that that's what they wrote in the text.
Yeah,
It
their anger and their hatred was embroiled on a page.
This is really difficult to talk about without spoilers.
Yes.
We will definitely give you a warning, do not fret, but so you liked it.
I liked it. I think I got more out of the experience than what I lost out of the experience.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
I what I will say right off the bat, it's so long, and I think the
Mhm.
more gore movies I've watched, I really respect that those movies are all so long, but
Yeah.
they're all. I think I can confidently say, besides maybe the first two parts of the Caribbean movies
Mhm.
and The Ring, obviously, his movies are too long. I don't know if it's a screenplay thing or if it's the way he likes his edits done, or maybe that's
Mhm.
just how all the pieces combine and he just shoots so much footage to have this long of a runtime for all of his films.
Mhm.
Nonetheless, it is much, much, much too long, this movie. And it's very disjointed and it's very messy and it's very stupid. And I don't think the movie doesn't know that it's stupid. I think it
Yeah.
very much knows it's dumb.
Yeah.
But also, like, sometimes it gets so stupid to the point where I'm like, okay, like, I'm over it. Like, can I get to the next thing?
Sure.
Um, Especially right before that climax, there's that little stint in the movie.
They're in like a spot.
Yes.
I literally could not agree with you more.
Yeah, I was like, this is just dumb. Like, it's
Yeah.
not funny. It's
No.
not entertaining.
And it maybe looks at its
It
worst. A
looks
100%.
worse in that moment. I don't really know why it looks like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it rubbed me such the wrong way, that little segment. And that's when I kind of whenever the movie shakes in terms of just feeling like it's knows what it is, that's when it scares me at its most. Because I'm like, okay, like
Ooh.
when it's working at its best, does it even know why it's working, or is it literally just random chance?
Yeah.
Um, but my long-winded saying it's a messy movie, which everyone is saying, even the people that hate it or love it, they all can acknowledge that it's a very messy film.
Yeah.
And I assume you can air a very similar
Sh-
feeling.
oh God. Okay. So I think I need to start by saying that I think, and I even like wrote it down in the notes here. I think it is an incredibly fascinating way when we are like young 20s, and I know Tyson doesn't have Twitter anymore. I still do because I think it's like the best way to find news updates or when screenings are happening, so on and so forth. And so I get a very unique pocket of people that react to movies very different. And there's a disparity between like if you check on Rotten Tomatoes versus on Twitter. And I think there's like an inverse and a reverse of that, which is like sometimes and I'm not giving any weight or credence to the tomato meter here. Walk with me, people. But like that this movie is being very well received on a general level, but on a pocket of the internet, there is some venom being thrown at this movie to a point where like, and it's funny because I haven't even really heard this term being thrown. I know what the meaning of it is, which is like old man screaming at the clouds, I think is the term.
Yeah, it's like basically old man screaming nonsense.
Yeah. And so, like, for some reason, maybe it was a statement being made, and I'm not going to be melding my thoughts in line with what the public is saying or how that differs this whole review, I promise. But I really want to set this out that, like, there was a lot of people that were running with that tagline to even, like, praise, like, bashing and praising. And so I was like, oh, okay, is this just going to be, like, annoying? But what I will say is, the biggest thought that I have going out of it, even regarding like if I loved or didn't like this movie, is we live in an era in time where the filmmakers of yesterday, who I'm not saying Gore is a has-been, most definitely not. The shit that he's pulling off in this movie, like people wish they had a finger of the energy that this man is putting out, both good and bad. But I think there is this propensity for filmmakers to see a world that is so drastically changing and either conform out of ease or fear, i.e., doing shit with AI. Paul Schrader, you can fucking die. Um, or they will supplant themselves in this notion of their values being eroded in favor of something woke. And we are watching literal studios being erected where they are favoring propaganda and calling it art and preaching it to kids in animated formats and things that are the farthest thing from art or what integrity is all about. And what I will say is that, like, when people are getting lost in the conversation of saying, like, oh, this man is like just an old person screaming at the clouds, what the fuck is he saying? Like, in my opinion, he is speaking nothing but a very real truth, no matter how honest or literal with the subtlety of a sledgehammer, quote unquote, he has. Like, what he is saying is something very pointed and very real, and it is rooted in not a place of I'm afraid of what the world is going to be, but more so the beauty that lives and exists within the digital haze of like being on your phone. And it is such a staunchly anti AI film, and I think even outside of this being something that feels very much needed now, I have to say that I had a real load of fun seeing a filmmaker that I've grown up with. Like, I mean, for my ninth birthday, for shit's sake, like, it was Rango themed. Like, I love Rango. I grew up with the Pirates of the Caribbean films, like many kids did, born in the 2000s or the late 90s. And so, like, I have a very deep appreciation for him. He would be up there as, like, up there for me as, like, a favorite filmmaker, not maybe one that comes to mind immediately, but I have a deep reverence for this person, and it could have very easily been that 10-year gap between A Cure for Wellness and this, where he adapts with the times in a way that like someone like Darren Aronofsky is, that are implementing AI and using Sora and using generative imagery and saying it's this avant-garde thing. No, you're just fucking lame and not willing to do the effort. And so I do think this movie is too long. I 100% agree with you, and I think to your point, I think it may be rooted in like the script because every film that he's been involved with, like A Cure for Wellness, gives him a story credit. Although he's not credited as a writer, I think it is 100% like putting way too much gas in the tank of a car that doesn't have the bandwidth to sustain it. And whether like I'm willing to give it, and we haven't really talked about our thoughts on A Cure for Wellness, I think that movie looks eye-poppingly beautiful, and I'm willing to just sit and embellish in the vibes of it. I'm willing to give it more of a pass. I agree. I think that like to a point where like this movie almost ends and then it doesn't. Now I will admit where it keeps going after that isn't very long, and I fuck a lot with like where it is taking the film, but there is lulls and moments where it does feel and often kind of look like a soundstage SNL skit that I'm not loving all the time, but I do think like this is as original as a movie is going to get in our day and age. And I would get a senile man that is screaming from the rooftops and having all these words that a lot of them are just rubbish and nonsense, but there is some truth in it, than a computer spewing jargon, you know? And when it's all said and done, it wasn't a Gore Verbinski. It was a oh shit, asses dropping on the floor, grazing the green pastures like a heifer Verbinski.
Mm,
You know, you
mm.
know.
Beautifully said.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
no, I think that obviously his heart is in the right place, and just because he has like old man syndrome doesn't mean we should write
Yeah,
off completely what he's saying because it's very agreeable. But I do think to some degree, like it's kind of that whole logic of the person that you're listening to is saying exactly what you believe in, but they're saying it in an annoying way, and it kind of
sure.
makes you like disagree with them based on principle. And I'm not going to say everything he says in this movie is done in an annoying way,
Hmm.
but there's like a avenue where like the characters have guns that turn off the teenagers' phones. And
Yeah,
like that's not like the dumbest thing in the movie by
no.
far, but it's just kind of stuff like that where like depending on who wrote it or how they want to portray it, that can
Hmm.
be like the dumbest shit ever and most annoying thing ever.
And there's like a creature in this movie that like the movie dedicates like 3 minutes to having an entire bit that never is brought back except for another visual reference of this thing that needed to not be in this movie whatsoever, and it wouldn't have changed anything. You know, it isn't like a what we reference a Elsa bringing Peter a slice of cake in Spider-Man 2 scene that at the end of the day she could have knocked on the door and said, "Hey Pete, you got a phone call," and it would have shaved off a couple minutes, but that winds up being like the greatest scene we've ever watched.
Very true.
But it's like, what? Why? And it like, I will admit, like for a movie that's around like 17 to 20 million dollars that it costs, like it does stretch itself out in ways that I do appreciate a lot. And it's funny because I think I've heard a lot of people say that like the final, like the third act loses all the steam when I think it's doing some of the more like visually interesting things, and it never like loses itself. Although the itself in it of itself is kind of like, oh, okay. And you know what? I think let's truth nuke spoil the shit out of this. You know, go
I
watch
think
the
so.
movie, go check it out, support original stories.
Go support an original story, and although even if you hate it or even if you love it, I've heard actually quite a bit of a variety of different opinions from people I would not expect. There are
Mm-hmm.
people in my life that watched this before me
Mm-hmm.
that unapologetically loved it, and
Mm-hmm.
I was shocked when I heard that reaction. And then there are people that we respect, that we follow and whatnot, that fucking despise this
Yeah.
movie. So
Yeah.
it's a very fun one to watch, and kind of watch with a friend, watch with a group of people, all of you kind of explore your thoughts on it. And
Mm-hmm.
at the very end of the day, even if you hate the movie, at the very least, it's going to be an original experience for sure.
I agree. And I mean, like, even before we kind of end the spoiler free thoughts, I think like even like to on a performance level, like there is a lot of great in this. There's a lot of great performers on their own that I've appreciated over the years. Sam Rockwell is having a blast relishing in this film, and it does feel like at times like a joke a minute, but there is a very strong emotional core to this film that I don't think always lands, and it sometimes is what we will get into interlaced with a narrative that is so unreal. Like it's what the fuck are we watching sort of thing. And the way that it approaches it is so fascinating, but just there's a lot of things to appreciate. I think the score at times gets very weird. Like it's
It gets freaky. It gets like electronic and jazzy at
and
points.
and I think it like it works in ways that although the movie feels very disjointed and like chopped up like a loaf of bread, it is something that by the end I do really appreciate. And I think we always preach about commitment, integrity, and silliness and camp being sometimes lost art forms in the medium. When in reality, I think this movie has a lot of that, maybe even too much of it. Where,
Some would argue.
yeah,
Special shout out to Juno Temple. I'm not too
mm,
familiar with
mm,
what she's been in, but she plays like a mom character in this, and I think that without her inclusion, the movie loses a lot of its like emotional fluster.
I agree, and maybe like rewatch will also accentuate it more. But like, she's so good in this film, and particularly a scene that requires a lot of her, given that it's literally sandwiched between like, oh shit, like a very strong pivotal narrative element that then almost like kind of dictates the landscape of the movie going forward, and then you're jumped right back into the action. um but she's so good, and I think it's a very demanding scene. She's great, and I mean, like, even like
I
shout
agree.
out to Haley Lou Richardson, who plays a very odd character in this film. Michael Pena, shout out Chips Crash.
Yeah, big fan of what's the guy named Derek Savage? No, that's
That's
Cool
Cool
Cat guy.
Cat.
That's Cool Cat guy. Dak Shepard. Big shout out to Dak Shepard.
No, no, no. We can't say that three times. And then just like a really great cast too. Like there's Zazie Beats in this. Like it's just it is a group of actors that would not come to mind whatsoever in a package that is flawed, messy, but it's swing filled. Doesn't always look great, but sometimes it actually looks really great. So it's like,
Gore had dirt on their families. I'm convinced. Like he had dirt on their families, and he was like, "You're gonna be in this new
you
project."
think so?
Well, maybe not Sam Rockwell because I think that guy's off like the perk, but
I don't
like Zazie Beats and Michael Pena, like they had no business.
again, we're just like a podcast that probably no one will listen to but ourselves and maybe like the friends that we have, but
My
like,
grandma.
very true. And like, I don't know. I wouldn't. I'm not trying to be rude here, but like, none of them are really like A-listers, though. You know, like Michael Pena maybe at one point when he got did he get nominated for Crash? That movie got nominated for a lot of shit. It shouldn't. But like, I don't think he's like. I think the chips kind of like killed him. I think there was like truth nukes in that shit, and like the world wasn't ready for what Dax's voice was saying, so we made a podcast about
And then
it.
he made Scoob. I think he's a part of Scoob. I think he did that one.
Wait, like Dax
Anyways,
Shepard directed Scoob?
spoiler alert,
Okay,
spoiler alert.
spoiler alert, click off. What the fuck was this movie smoking when it came to school shootings and how it intertwines itself with an AI apocalypse arriving?
No clue. So I think what this movie was trying to, or maybe trying, or maybe successfully implying, was
Okay.
the fact that the government is essentially enforcing and encouraging school shootings so then the kids will die and be cloned to come back and
Yes.
to by proxy then like be adverts and like encourage AI usage. So the
Yeah.
whole idea is like to kill all of the real kids in school
Mm-hmm.
and then from school shooting
Yes.
and then breed clones from the
Yes.
grieving parents
Yes.
and then at that point all of the kids will like support the troops and like it's just shit like that where it's like what?
No, because so it like even to a step further, like they're breeding this cycle to promote the AI usage, but then there's like this angle where like the actual souls of the deceased kids are in this AI software that then will further make the users want to stay in there, and because it's more a real reality than the world they're living in, which isn't even very wrong considering that the souls of their kids are in it. Like if you had told me that a narrative reference of this film would have been Richard Kelly's Southland Tales, I would have laughed my fucking ass off. And again, I think what Richard Kelly is doing, like he is the Messiah and we're just living in his world.
Very true.
If you want to be on this podcast, please do. We would love to have you.
You and Dak.
But this movie, it is such a confounding thing because we at first, like I don't want to speak on your behalf, but like the movie introduces this angle of school shootings when they're having a conversation about like children on their phone and they're in like the break room of a school and then just like off the cuff you hear an alarm and they're like, oh, school shooting, and they lock themselves in a room and I'm like, oh shit, okay. Like, are you trying to like subtly like bring it into the narrative and say that like AI and media consumption is having a direct involvement with the way in which school shootings are such a commonality that like this is just every day for them? But then it literally becomes the core foundation of the film. And you looked at me in the movie and you're like, how have I not fucking heard this? I hear you. How the fuck have I not heard this? Because like when you say like, oh, screaming at the clouds, okay, but like why the fuck are you not also including the fact that like this is embedded in the text in a way that like people are talking about the subtlety of a sledgehammer. At this point, I think, and mileage is going to vary here because like there's like a gag in this movie, like a scene with parents talking about their cloned kid that is so like I haven't heard you. Well, technically, the laugh that I heard came much later in the movie with a shot. I've not heard you laugh like that since we saw The Beast, and that was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, no, it is like I don't really understand what the writer of this film was smoking. I you pulled his image up on Letterboxd like
The
midway.
writer of the Dora the Explorer movie.
That's not true.
That is very true.
He wrote Dora the Explorer.
Which I
That's
hear is
so
actually pretty fire. It has like
that's so
Danny Trejo voicing what's the monkey's name?
Boots.
Boots. Yeah.
That's awesome. But yeah, no, just so much of that is in this movie, just the school shooting angle. And not to say that it doesn't fit or it's a bad angle to approach with, because obviously it's a very
Mm-hmm.
crucial thing for this movie to like
Mm-hmm.
exist in. But I guess to some degree, it's like fuck the AI stuff for a second. Like
Yeah.
I kind of want to focus on like this topic for like the movie's like playground
Yeah.
more, because
Yeah.
I would argue, like obviously most filmmakers are going to be voicing out their thoughts on AI and their hate
Yeah.
for it, and people like Del Toro have been very much outspoken about how AI is like the bane of existence or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always kind of it's been such a commonality and a trope for like the robots taking over and how they can never really fully fulfill the human role. It's
Yeah.
been a thing forever before AI became even like an actual threat in the film industry.
I mean, James Cameron built his entire career off of it.
Exactly. And so, like, obviously, that's going to be so much more like focused in on for a film industry movie. But I guess the school shooting aspect is not as common of a talking point for a lot of these directors.
Hmm.
And not to say that it should be, or rather, like, we should encourage it.
Hmm.
But this film is so like it's a part of its identity. Like,
Yeah,
there's so
yeah.
many lines that, like you said, subtlety of a sledgehammer.
Is this your first time? Is
Yeah,
this
is
your
this
first
this
kid?
is your first kid? Like stuff like that, or like like there's the craziest line I ever heard, which is like I said,
We fucked around. Like we, this is our fourth kid, and we got to a point where we made a Muslim.
well, yeah, exactly, that was that one, or the one that I think is crazier is like the clumsy. Are you sure? Isn't that what got him killed in the first place?
Oh my
Like
God.
obviously, like kind of a very dark humor joke. Which, real quick side note, very glad this movie is rated R. It feels like it lives in its rated R rating very well.
Without it trying to be like not just like exploitative, but like for cringe humor's sake, or like
Like crass.
yeah, thank you. That's the word I was looking because it's like I don't. When, technically, the last gore movie that was rated R was A Cure for Wellness, but I really do, and it's also not like this motherfucker's going for broke for the sake of like putting everything out there. Because the detail that I found out when right before we saw this movie is apparently he didn't just like take a sabbatical or a break. He's been cooking up, and I don't know what his fascination with cats are. He's making an animated musical about cats in space that has Ice-T and Anderson .Paak, who's also doing the music for the movie, and it's called Catawampus. Um, yeah, you're
That's
looking.
not real.
I wish I could make this up, like on an organic level. I wish I could come up with it. I guess, okay. What I'm trying to get at is this guy. He's never made the same movie. Even when he had a 3 home run pitch in baseball with the Pirates films, like
The third Pirates film is like a drug trip movie. Like the
it gets
first half, I
Lynchian.
think, is like yes, Lynchian.
So it's like, regardless of evil, and I guess like if I haven't made it clear, I really enjoyed this movie. I think what it serves to exist as, I appreciate, like there's like a pocket of movies where the swings as you're in the movie, I'm maybe not loving nearly as much as I love the conversation about it. And I think for a movie as very rooted in what it's trying to say as it is, I think when you are actually having a conversation about it, because of how obvious it is stating things, it did its job. And this movie also does come with some like I think like any movie that is original, like I think what Verbinski was saying is he had a workshop like 3 different studios to finance the film because no
Mm,
one was taking it. And funny enough, when we had finished the movie, it was like the AI had heard it on my phone, and I guess like he was saying the big thing that they were saying no to was the school shooter angle,
really?
and like no studio would take it given the climate that we live in,
Shocker.
right? And for me, it's the fact that like this man, and the thing that he said that I stick with is he says he will only because they were asking like, would you return to franchise filmmaking? And he said, I only do movies if I feel like I've never done it before. Not the art of making movie, but the movie itself. And I think that's pretty evident in this dude's filmography as it is. Like he has a fucking Looney Tunes ass chasing a mouse to kill it in a house. Ooh, damn! Call me Dr. Seuss.
Ooh,
He like The Ring, even like the films that are in the same genre. The Ring and A Cure for Wellness couldn't be more separate, although sharing very similar visual aesthetics. Um, I just appreciated it, and I think a lot of people can misconstrue my appreciation for an excuse that the movie didn't wasn't good, and I'm willing to give it a pass. But like, I think there's not enough swings being taken for bigger movies or by bigger filmmakers, and he had every right to just recluse himself and no longer make movies anymore after his 10th flop. I don't know because I think Rango was financially successful, but like the Lone Ranger killed him, and
the cure for wellness might be his Frankenstein body coming back to
yeah,
life and
yeah.
like trying to figure out how to make a movie again.
Yeah, and in many ways, like it feels befitting that a filmmaker who has been working behind the scenes literally starts a movie with what I think is actually a pretty exceptional like opening 10 to 15 minutes, which is like I would imagine like pages of dialogue. It opens with like essentially a monologue, and
True.
it's in ways like him leaping into the norms of the world and saying like this is what I feel we need to fucking like wake up. And Is there maybe a filmmaker or even an existing movie that I can't think of right now that maybe does that better or with more subtlety? Sure. But when it's said and done, like we're having and I know you don't really live in that pool of pop culture, but like people on Twitter are literally going to bat for the fact that like AI, like Darren Aronofsky is literally making a movie about the existence of the Constitution called 1776, which is all done through AI.
How fucking awesome.
It's like and they will stand by it like 10 toes down. Harmony Korine thinks it's so gangster, and like we're watching the downfall of these artists that like although there has not been like I'm not saying that Noah made me want to become an artist, but like there's people that very honestly, passionately, and to an extent rightfully so, say that like Darren Aronofsky got them into filmmaking, or Gummo made people realize a side of movie making that there really isn't anymore, or made them want to make things. And like I would love to watch Julian Donkey Boy.
Julian Donkey Boy.
Like I see what these motherfuckers are saying, and I wonder if would the Harmony Korine who made Julian Donkey Boy look at the Harmony Korine right now that is saying like speed is the next second coming of Christ, and like maybe he probably would say that's actually true, but like that like generative AI is the coolest thing ever. Like, would they even appreciate that?
I think
Like,
he'd be too scared by Harmony Korine's like neck beard.
you true, what's hiding under there? You know?
Probably the AI. That's like the hard drive.
No, literally. And so like I think like I'm even gleaming with excitement talking about this movie, and it is flawed, 100%. It is overlong. There is plenty of like eye rolly gags and jokes, and like oh, but like and even like a lot of times I would even go as far to say maybe this is like his most uninteresting looking film. Um, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
right.
I'd agree with that.
But like when the movie goes to like different 3D rendered biomes of like they're standing on a big ass birthday cake with like candles and shit, like
And there's like clowns floating in the background, like it's like a fucking Facebook post.
without question, or like a MacBook desktop wallpaper, but like or it's like the unborn fetus in the same shot of Sam Rockwell like in pain. It's like it's inspired, and that's like something that is so easy to discount. Like we're watching like two filmmakers, Sam Raimi, Gore Verbinski, even Christoph Gans with like Return to Silent Hill. Like they're still doing things, and it's so interesting that like instead of the industry celebrating it, send help to a lesser extent, they're taking the limitations and saying, "All right, I'm gonna fucking make something," and I like that gives me hope, and I think it's such an interesting year already, like barely a month and a half in, of watching filmmakers like young and old, Markiplier or Live Monkeys.
Filmmakers like Markiplier.
Isn't that a crazy sentence? But like you dug it. I've adored that movie. I've seen it technically 2.5 times. Willing to do it again. I had to leave. I apologize. I was pretending to be at confession, but I was
They
just.
still paid for it, Mark. They still paid for it.
This is true. This is true. So it's like it feels very energizing, and I don't know. Like it's interesting because I guess I would ask you if maybe we had planned like forecasted to talk about, let's say for example, God forbid, Disclosure Day. Like that seems like, oh yeah, we're definitely doing an episode on that. But it sucked. Like I think there might be some times where we have very real conversations about like maybe we don't make an episode on that, or we like pivot it in another way. It feels good to talk about a movie that has something to say that I do think works. The longer I sit on it, I'm like, you know what? I think the school shooter angle kind of fucking rips. Not to say that it romanticizes or sensationalizes, but it kind of boldly swings by taking a comedic route that has an underbelly of very grim truth, but also like a heart to it. That I'm not trying to say there's a heart in like school shooting, but like there is a heart that is speaking about the humanity of people in this very flawed, fucking crazy world. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, very true. I think that like a lot of film that try to focus on major tragedies like per se a school shooting or other things like are that are widespread like panic and terror. I think that it's very easy to get so enveloped in the
Yeah.
actual tragedy and the devastation of said event.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's a very devastating and tragic thing, but I think it also takes just as much of a balance to feel like you're not just focusing on the tragedy. Because at the end of the day, like, if you're just focusing on the shocking and tragic aspect to an event like that,
Yeah.
what's the point of putting it in your movie? What's the point of putting it on screen?
Sure.
So even if it's like in a dark humor approach, like Good Luck, or in a whatever type of approach from a different film that wants to focus on a topic like that,
Hmm.
at the very least, I can say, okay, like you are making a artful swing, whether
Yeah.
it works or not, depending on the viewer, sure. However, it's not just you focusing on a tragedy to make
Hmm.
sense of it, but
Hmm.
rather you're trying to focus on it as a narrative jumping grounds for something a bit more, I guess you can say widespread or a bit more universal.
Yeah, I mean, I think it like weds the concept of a tragedy like gun violence and school shooting and the way that that influences like a younger generation in tandem with the industry of like cell phones and technology taking over these young adolescent minds. But it's also like these are horrible things that are happening, and in many ways, the culture that we live in has either embraced or spoken about these issues in very different ways, such as like groups of people offloading it as something politicized and it is a certain group of people spreading this disease. When in like by the end of this movie, I think it gives a very pointed statement like it isn't over. It isn't like shut and done. Like there is still hope to be had. There is still an idea to strive for of how to rebuild, how to work towards providing a better system for kids to not have to fear their fucking lives being lost at the hands of gun violence or AI completely eroding any hope that we have, you know? And I think it's kind of, I thought it to be very beautiful.
I think so, and I think maybe this is gonna bridge us into our next movie, or at least in a talking point our next
Mm,
movie. But truthfully, I mean, maybe it's because he's going so gonzo and so off the wall with Good Luck, Have Fun.
yeah.
I find it to be not nearly as boring as Lone Ranger or Cure for Wellness.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting point because I do think I definitely felt between the three, I felt the runtime the most of the Lone Ranger. I love the look. Like I do love A Cure for Wellness. Do you even like that movie?
Yeah, I liked it mainly because of how fucking much he loses it towards the end of it.
Sure.
But I think what I've learned from watching Gore's most recent works and, throughout the 2000s, truthfully is I think he is like a really fun director to watch his work because it really feels like he loses it by the end of every project. Not like loses the sauce or
Maybe even
loses
has
the
it the
quality.
most.
Sometimes he has it the most, but it
Hmm.
really does feel like he's making something at first, and then he is like so insane that he just loses all grips of everything and just starts throwing shit at the wall
Yeah.
or just
Yeah.
trying to like he's just like running around like a crazy person.
Hmm.
Every film, like Lone Ranger, to some degree The Ring,
Hmm.
Cure for Wellness, Good Luck,
Hmm.
Have Fun,
Hmm.
even to some degree the Pirates movies, like
Yeah.
he really is a filmmaker that feels like he shoots everything chronologically, but also feels like he kind of scripts everything
Sure.
chronologically. And
Yeah.
then the longer he does it, the more like Francis Ford Coppola he gets in the jungle, and he just loses all
Yeah.
balance of what makes a movie a movie.
I agree.
So Cure for Wellness, although I kind of thought was a bit boring in those first two halves, and also you're gonna think I'm wrong, but I don't think Dane DeHaan's good like at all. I don't think he's good. Like not even like in like a he gets better. Like I think he just is not providing what the movie needs throughout the entirety of it. Um,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
that being said, the last 15 minutes are pretty fucking psycho. So I'll give it that.
Yeah, I disagree. I think he's good, but I think it's funny because I think it's like when you put on a suit that's too big for you,
Yes.
like it's I don't there's never a point in the movie where I'm thinking that he's not trying or given the directions that he is receiving, but I definitely like I miscast might be the word, but I don't like I don't know, maybe it's also the fact that like from then till now the last known documentation is him doing the classic bougie ratchet song from Dumb Money. Like I think I miss him a lot, and maybe it's also I will admit me pouring in the fact that I maybe missed the time of movies that he was in back then, like TASM 2, Valerian,
Woo.
that Chronicle. Like he was what Hollywood wanted him to be, like being pushed out.
He's a bit like of a weirdo character, and like to some degree that works. We've seen Christopher Nolan kind of master it with Oppenheimer.
Oh yeah.
He's
Oh
very
yeah.
good in Oppenheimer, and in Chronicle he's very good too.
I agree.
I can't speak for Valerian because
Fuck no.
you've banned me from watching that,
Fuck.
and
Why would we ever watch a Luc Besson movie anyway?
oh shit,
True.
um, but yeah, no, he's a weirdo, and I think a weirdo works for this movie. But
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, like you said, like he does feel a bit like he has the suit on, but he's much too small for it.
Yeah.
Doesn't have the screen presence, and in that second act, it kind of wants him to morph into a more empathetic and like good lead
Yeah.
character, and
I yeah.
I don't believe it.
Yeah.
I never believed his journey. I never really cared about him being there. I didn't care about anything in the movie happening,
Sure.
which is why when it starts to go a bit more gonzo, a bit more freaky, a bit more
Mm-hmm.
visually stimulating,
Mm-hmm.
that's when the movie can kind of pull me in.
Sure.
But beyond
Sure.
that, I'm just kind of like, wow, this thing is so fucking long.
Mm-hmm.
And I told you, I don't even know when I said that, but midway watch, I was like, I have no clue where we are in this movie. I don't know if we're an hour in for 30
Yeah.
minutes or we're at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, we still have like another fucking hour and a half from when I said that. So
Yeah. I could get, and maybe it's also the fact that we live in this period where we watch a lead character who, funny enough, I think like both Dane DeHaan and Sam Rockwell's characters in these films kind of be like the in to get you to be in the crux of the movie, but I think they want to like have their cake and eat it too, where they're kind of painted with like a bigger canvas that hasn't doesn't have much paint for you to be like, oh, they're like more mysterious, you know, and then like it opens
yes.
up by having more characterization had, and I agree with you. I don't think it fully earns it, but I'm appreciating a lot of the other elements in A Cure for Wellness to kind of just ignore it. Where like I do think Sam Rockwell puts in the work, and I think the script does try. And I'm fucking with what he's doing a lot of the time, and especially where his character evolves to then be the unborn kid inside his mom's womb. And I do think like on an imagery level, like you have like a big ass cat with cats on its body, limbo ass fuck or inside game ass like dick with freaking glitter coming out, and I'm like, what are we doing? But then there's like imagery of like her holding him like a little child, and I think like or a fetus turning into Sam Rockwell agonizing, you know, like it's really sick shit. And maybe if you put that in the pantheon of other Gore Verbinski films, like that like kind of stands up there, you know, it's like it's cool shit at the end of the day.
And I do think Sam Rockwell is a good representation of what the movie is. Like he
Mm,
looks crazy, he's eccentric, he's out there, he's loud, he's brash, and that's kind of what the movie is.
yeah,
Like his character very much is the movie like personified.
sure,
Whereas Dane DeHaan is like kind of like the view, like you said, like it's the viewer's way
yeah,
into this big intricate, like castle of sorts
hmm,
of like deception and
yeah,
illness and whatever. But Dane DeHaan, maybe it's just the way his character was written, but like
maybe,
I don't buy it. And
mm.
I really maybe it was just me misremembering, but I really thought he was like an old man, just younger, because of how
Yeah.
flat he was and how much I didn't buy it. But then it was just me leading
That's
to, yeah,
interesting to like have a performance and you're like, oh, this is a feature, not a bug, and to a point where you're like creating a whole narrative in your head of like, oh no, it's like this because of this, and then it is. That's
when
interesting.
he's doing like stockbroker shit, I'm like, that's not real. But I'm like, maybe like you're old.
I could get down with that. You know what? I think like if I were to rank or not rank, rate them like Lone Ranger, I give a 4. It was at a 4.5. I would give A Cure like probably a 4 for me, maybe a 3.5. And low key, I think I'll probably give Good Luck a 4 out of 5. Out of 5.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would Lone Ranger. I would probably give. I think I gave it a 3.
Yeah,
Um, Cure. I'd probably also give a 3.
that's okay.
And Good Luck Have Fun, that one's closer to a 3.5.
Uh-huh.
I can't say I loved any of them. However, I will
Yeah.
think about a lot of moments. Like that's gonna be a movie that you and I reference a lot in the future. I can just tell by how that movie's
Yeah.
been arranged and how it's
Yeah.
written, and it is quite the fucking amalgamation in the best ways and in sometimes the worst ways.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess the bigger question is, does Gore need to go back to making smaller things? Because he's always been maximalist, whether it be
Hmm.
the technical innovation of Rango
Yeah.
or how big the Pirates movies were. And, his last three projects have all been pretty big
Yeah.
creations.
Hmm.
But The Ring really is his opus in my mind, and it's the
Yeah.
smallest of all of the work. Obviously, Preceding that, it gets smaller just because of
Mm-hmm.
budgetary reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Does he need to go back to that playground, or do we like him working with these bigger ideas and these longer ideas?
I think that's actually a really interesting question because I think through the discussion of, wow, we're like an hour in. Look at us. Um, funny, I was actually like today, like as I was like getting ready to head out to see you, I was thinking about like how like on every level, Good Luck Have Fun Don't Die feels the least like a Gore Verbinski movie. But I'm coming out of this saying that arguably maybe it feels because like The Ring is this perplexing like puzzle box of a movie, and I think a lot of it is nothing like Good Luck Have Fun Don't Die, but it feels like a person going full commitment where I think I haven't felt that from a Gore Verbinski like I like Lone Ranger. I think very much is that's the Gore Verbinski of pirates. But like the sensibilities that I love about a Gore Verbinski is almost on full display, even in ugly fashion, in gluttonous fashion, in humor that falls flat fashion. But like the things that fucking work, I'm like, oh, that's the guy who made The Ring.
Mm,
Like the ending of The Ring, I think about on such a continual basis of like, how the fuck did I not acknowledge like this movie's nuts? Like
mhm.
talk about we talked one of the things that I didn't like when I had watched it with you on Halloween was like, oh, it tries to add this parent angle that doesn't work, but then when I rewatch it, I'm like, no, these are parents that didn't ever want to be parents, that are beheld by this role, whether it's Brian Cox literally electrocuting himself in the bathtub, or like the final note of that fucking movie is her forcing this kid to endow this sickness, this virus, this plague onto an unseen like bystander. And it's like that's the most revolting thing ever.
He's good at revolting. He goes to dark places. When in Cure for Wellness, the ending of that is just pretty dark and pretty fucked up.
It is.
Good Luck, Have Fun is no different. It gets sad and it gets
Yeah.
gross and it gets weird
Yeah.
and kind of demented.
Uh-huh.
And although the Pirates films I don't think ever got that dark, I mean
Even they
they're
would,
always
yeah.
acknowledged as being darker films, especially for a Disney property.
I agree. So, yeah, I think that kind of gives us our thoughts on this, but like to
Good
lily pad a little bit.
good director, fun guy to watch and fun guy to kind of either laugh at or laugh with.
And what I will say also too is like all the comments, none of them are wrong. I disagree, but it's also like if you interpret this as a guy screaming at the clouds, sure, I disagree, but it's a take that I don't think it's a take that has ground to stand on.
Sure,
I think it's misguided, but it's a take that I agree with.
very true, and I think he is screaming at the clouds, but I like the fact that he is.
Right? I think we need more people like it instead of folding into the Angel Studio generative AI fucking machine.
Israeli Honda funded
Uh,
ad.
yeah. So with all that said, I think this kind of leaves us at a great positioning because right after we finish this, we're going to dive into maybe the Lisan Al Ghaib in and of himself, Danny Boyle,
Mr. British Danny Boyle.
because I think I'm going to leave it up to you, Chad, if you got this far to the element of surprise, but we are going to definitely be, for our next episode, talking about a specific Danny Boyle movie that is screening on film, fortunately for us, within a drivable distance, but we're going to have a lot to say about that filmmaker, a man who is always saying something with a DP, and I think that fits the mold of who we are as artists very well, of like a filmmaker, a director like you, and a hopeful DP like me, like there is a relationship and a kinship that Danny Boyle has with like someone like Anthony Mantle, although ironically the movie that we're talking about isn't shot by him. Did you know that?
I didn't.
Some other
It was shot by
Satan?
Uwe Boll guys, right?
Oh. No, he was the one that has the credit for doing that Zootopia show, Zootopia Plus.
Danny Boyle, I'm excited for him.
But yeah, so I love you guys. Again, I know Tyson kind of lives in a little bit of a secret corner, so if you want to find me elsewhere outside of the audio space.
I actually will plug my letterbox. I forgot to the
Oh!
first time,
All
and
right,
I'll
so
plug
while
that.
while they pull that up, I follow my letterbox at number 4 CINE. All the links will be down below in my YouTube Cinephile ASMR as well as my TikTok of the same name.
You can follow my letterbox at T Ray with a Y, ST, all one word, so T Raced.
And more importantly, email us in at beneflickspod@gmail.com for any questions, thoughts, because this is a community and I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 2.
Thanks, guys. Love you.
I love you guys. All right. Have a great one. Peace.